In the heart of a sprawling medieval kingdom, there lived a wise and just king named Aldemar, whose reign was celebrated for peace and prosperity. His realm stretched from lush green valleys to towering snow-capped mountains, and his people flourished under his benevolent rule. The kingdom's capital, Lumina, was a city of breathtaking beauty, with cobblestone streets that gleamed in the sunlight and markets brimming with exotic goods from faraway lands. At its center stood the Grand Royal Palace, an architectural marvel with gleaming spires, ornate archways, and intricate stained glass windows that told stories of the kingdom's glorious past. King Aldemar was a man of great vision and wisdom, but as the years passed, the weight of his crown grew heavier. He had 3 daughters, Amara, Seraphina, and Liora, each beloved in her own way. Amara, the eldest, was renowned for her sharp intellect and diplomatic skills, often aiding her father in matters of state. Seraphina, the middle daughter, was a spirited and adventurous soul, admired for her bravery and deep connection to the people. Liora, the youngest, was gentle and kind-hearted, her love for art and nature reflecting the kingdom's softer side. Though their personalities differed, they shared an unbreakable bond. As Aldemar grew older, the question of succession began to weigh heavily on his mind. He wished to choose a worthy heir, not based on tradition or birth order, but on merit. The king believed that the ruler of a kingdom must possess not only strength and intellect but also compassion, humility, and the ability to inspire others. To find the daughter who best embodied these qualities, he devised a plan, a test that would reveal their true character. One morning, as the golden rays of the sun painted the palace walls, Aldemar summoned his daughters to the royal hall. The chamber was filled with the kingdom's nobility, all eager to witness the king's proclamation. Aldemar, seated on his majestic throne adorned with intricate carvings of lions and eagles, looked upon his daughters with a mixture of pride and solemnity. "My dear daughters," he began, his voice resonating through the hall, "the time has come for me to determine which of you shall inherit the crown. This kingdom has thrived not merely through power, but through wisdom, compassion, and unity. To ensure that our legacy endures, I have devised a challenge. Each of you will receive a plot of barren land, equal in size and quality. Your task is to transform it into something of value to the kingdom. You have 1 year to complete this endeavor. How you choose to fulfill this task is entirely up to you. At the end of the year, I will judge the results and decide who is most deserving of the throne." The crowd murmured in astonishment, and the princesses exchanged thoughtful glances. The task was clear, yet its implications were profound. Aldemar continued, "Remember, this is not a test of wealth or power, but of vision, creativity, and the ability to lead. May your hearts guide you as much as your minds." With that, the challenge was set, and the princesses began to prepare for the journey ahead. Each had her own ideas, hopes, and fears, and as they left the royal hall, their paths diverged, setting the stage for a tale of ambition, perseverance, and self-discovery. The princesses departed the palace the following day, each heading toward their assigned plot of barren land. Though their father had given them identical parcels, the land seemed more symbolic than practical. These were stretches of sun-scorched earth with few signs of life, surrounded by rocky terrain. Yet the challenge was not about the land itself, but what they could envision and create. Amara, the eldest, was the first to arrive at her plot. She stood tall, her sharp features framed by her long chestnut hair, tied back to keep the wind from her face. A planner by nature, Amara wasted no time. She set up a pavilion and summoned advisors, architects, and laborers from the capital. Her vision was clear. She would transform the barren land into a bustling trade hub. She knew the kingdom thrived on commerce, and a well-planned center for trade would cement her reputation as the ideal successor. "Start with a marketplace," she instructed her advisors, sketching plans on a parchment. "Wide roads for caravans, shaded stalls for merchants, and a system for collecting fair taxes. Once trade begins, we can invest in inns and storage facilities. Amara's mind was consumed with logistics. Her efforts were impressive. Caravans soon arrived, drawn by the promise of trade, and the land began to hum with activity. Yet her focus on efficiency left little room for personal interaction. She was admired but remained distant, a leader respected for her intellect, but not loved for her warmth. Meanwhile, Seraphina, the adventurous middle daughter, took a different approach. Her arrival was less grand. She rode alone on horseback, wearing practical leather armor. She surveyed the dry, cracked earth and felt the weight of the challenge. Unlike Amara, Seraphina didn't have a detailed plan. What she had was a fierce determination and a love for her people. On her second day, Seraphina rode to the nearest village, where she found a small, struggling community plagued by drought. "What do you need most?" she asked the village elder, a weary man with sunburned skin and kind eyes. "Water," he replied without hesitation. "Without it, nothing grows, and our children starve." Moved by their plight, Seraphina decided to dedicate her plot of land to solving the water crisis. She gathered volunteers and began digging deep wells. She studied ancient texts on irrigation and sought the help of engineers. Her approach was hands-on. She worked alongside the villagers, earning their trust and admiration. As weeks turned into months, the barren land began to transform. Streams of water flowed into newly built canals, and crops began to sprout in the once arid soil. Seraphina's project became a beacon of hope, a symbol of what could be achieved through unity and hard work. Far from her sisters, the youngest, Liora, arrived at her plot of land with little fanfare. She was soft-spoken and gentle, with an artist's soul. While her sisters approached the challenge with bold plans, Liora found herself overwhelmed by the vast emptiness of the land. For days, she wandered the fields, seeking inspiration. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Liora stumbled upon a small grove of withered trees. Though the trees appeared lifeless, she noticed tiny green shoots at their base. "There is still life here," she whispered, her heart filling with hope. Liora decided to nurture the land back to health, not with grand structures or ambitious projects, but with patience and care. She began planting trees, one at a time, using seeds she collected from the forests near the capital. She worked tirelessly, often alone, digging, watering, and tending to the soil. Over time, her barren plot transformed into a lush garden, a sanctuary of beauty and peace. Birds returned, singing melodies that filled the air, and travelers passing through marveled at the serene oasis. While her sisters built for utility and progress, Liora's creation touched the soul. Her land became a place where people came to rest, reflect, and heal. Yet, despite the admiration her work inspired, she wondered if her quiet efforts would ever be enough to secure her father's favor. As the year unfolded, the sisters faced challenges, doubts, and triumphs, each driven by her unique vision. But what they didn't yet realize was that their father's test was about more than the land. It was about the values they embodied and the lessons they would learn along the way. As the months turned into seasons, each sister faced unique trials that tested the strength of their resolve and the depth of their character. Amara's trade hub flourished rapidly. Merchants flocked to the market, and wealth poured into her land. She established laws, enforced order, and expanded her vision, constructing warehouses, stables, and lodgings for travelers. The once barren land now buzzed with life, yet something was missing. Amara's single-minded pursuit of efficiency created a sense of detachment. Workers labored tirelessly, but felt little connection to her as a leader. One day, a group of merchants approached Amara with a concern. "Princess," they began, bowing respectfully, "your tolls are fair, but many of the smaller traders struggle to make a living. They cannot compete with the wealthier merchants." Amara frowned, her sharp mind processing the dilemma. "If I lower the tolls for some, the kingdom loses revenue," she replied. "But I will consider your concerns." She dismissed them and returned to her plans. but a seed of doubt began to grow. Was her focus on prosperity coming at the cost of fairness? For the first time, Amara began to question whether success could truly be measured in gold alone. Meanwhile, Seraphina faced her own challenges. Though her irrigation project brought water to the villagers, the newfound abundance drew the attention of bandits. These outlaws saw the flowing canals and thriving fields as an opportunity to plunder. One fateful night, the bandits raided the village. Seraphina, ever the warrior, leapt into action. She rallied the villagers and led them in defending their homes. Armed with little more than farming tools and their fierce determination, they managed to drive the bandits away. But the victory came at a cost. Several villagers were injured, and the experience left Seraphina shaken. "I came to help, not to bring danger to these people," she confided to the village elder, her voice heavy with guilt. The elder placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You have brought us hope, princess," he said, "and hope is always worth fighting for. But perhaps it's time to think beyond defense. We must build a community that can stand together, not just survive." Inspired by his words, Seraphina began organizing the villagers into a cooperative. She taught them self-defense and established a council where every voice could be heard. Her project was no longer just about water. It was about empowerment and resilience. Far away, Liora's garden was growing, but so were her doubts. Though her sanctuary brought peace to many, she couldn't help but feel that her efforts were small compared to her sister's grand achievements. She received letters from the capital praising Amara's trade hub and Seraphina's irrigation system, but there was little mention of her oasis. One day, a wandering bard visited her garden. He was an older man with a weathered lute and a voice that carried stories of the kingdom. Liora welcomed him warmly, offering him food and rest. As he sat beneath the shade of a blossoming tree, he began to sing. "Far from the noise, in a land so serene, a princess has built what cannot be seen. Her garden, a haven for weary souls, a gift to the heart, more precious than gold." Liora listened, tears welling in her eyes. "Do you think my work matters?" she asked softly. The bard smiled. "Your garden is a refuge," he said. "It reminds us of beauty, peace, and the goodness that still exists in the world. Never doubt its worth." Buoyed by his words, Liora resolved to continue her work with renewed vigor. She began inviting poets, artists, and musicians to her garden, turning it into a cultural haven where creativity could flourish. Though her contributions were less tangible than her sister's, they touched hearts in profound ways. Back at the palace, the king received reports on his daughter's progress. Each sister's journey was unique, shaped by her strengths and challenges. The king smiled to himself, knowing that the real test was still to come. He had given them a year to transform their lands, but the true purpose of the challenge was not just to determine who could build the most. It was to reveal who they had become in the process. As the year drew closer to its end, the sisters felt the weight of their journeys. Each had achieved much, but their struggles had also shaped their understanding of leadership, sacrifice, and responsibility. Meanwhile, whispers of their progress traveled across the kingdom, capturing the attention of nobles, commoners, and even those who lived beyond its borders. Amara, now regarded as a shrewd and efficient ruler, had built one of the most prosperous trade hubs in the region. However, the inequality in her marketplace continued to grow. Smaller traders were being edged out, and the once bustling atmosphere had started to feel rigid and cold. One evening, as Amara reviewed her records, a young boy approached her stall. His clothes were patched, and he clutched a small basket of herbs. "Princess, will you buy these?" he asked, his voice trembling. Amara looked at him, her sharp mind calculating the meager profit such herbs could bring. "Why don't you sell them in the market?" she asked. The boy lowered his gaze. "The big merchants laugh at me. They say my herbs are worthless." For the first time, Amara felt the weight of her decisions. Her policies had created wealth, but at what cost? That night, she stayed awake drafting a plan to introduce fairer trade policies, including support for smaller traders and artisans. She began to see her role not just as a builder of wealth, but as a protector of opportunity. Seraphina's cooperative, meanwhile, had grown into a thriving community. The villagers worked together to protect their fields, build schools, and improve their lives. Yet Seraphina struggled with an unexpected challenge: learning to step back. Her natural instinct was to lead, to take charge in every situation. But the villagers began to push back, asking for more say in decisions. One evening, the village elder approached her. "Princess, you have given us much, but we must learn to stand on our own." Seraphina nodded, though the words stung. Leadership, she realized, wasn't about control, it was about trust. She began to share responsibilities, allowing the villagers to take ownership of their projects. Though it was difficult at first, she saw the community grow stronger and more united. Liora's garden, now a renowned sanctuary for artists and dreamers, had become a symbol of peace and inspiration. However, Liora often felt overshadowed by her sister's grand accomplishments. Letters from the palace spoke of Amara's trade empire and Seraphina's cooperative, while her work was described in passing as a lovely retreat. One day, a traveler arrived at the garden. She was a healer, weary from her journey across the kingdom. Liora offered her a place to rest, and as they talked, the healer shared stories of the people she had helped. "Your garden is more than a retreat," the healer said. "It's a place where people find themselves again. They leave here stronger, ready to face the world. Never underestimate the power of what you've created." Encouraged by the healer's words, Liora expanded her vision. She began hosting gatherings where people could share their stories, struggles, and dreams. The garden became a place of healing, not just for the body but for the soul. As the final month approached, the king sent word for his daughters to return to the palace. Each sister prepared to leave, their hearts heavy with the realization that their time with their lands and people had shaped them in ways they hadn't anticipated. Amara packed her ledgers and trade agreements, determined to show her father the wealth she had created, but also the lessons she had learned about fairness and opportunity. Seraphina bid farewell to the villagers, proud of the resilient community they had built together. And Liora gathered tokens from her garden, poems, paintings, and letters of gratitude from those who had found solace in her sanctuary. Their journeys were far from over, but as they set out for the palace, each sister knew that the test had changed them forever. What awaited them at the palace was not just their father's judgment, but the chance to reflect on who they had become and who they wanted to be. The grand palace gates stood open, adorned with golden banners, as if to welcome home the three princesses. News of their return had spread across the kingdom, and villagers, merchants, and nobles alike gathered to catch a glimpse of the sisters who had shaped the land in such transformative ways. As Amara, Seraphina, and Liora entered the royal courtyard, they were greeted by the king's council, a group of wise advisors who had served the throne for decades. The air was thick with anticipation as the sisters prepared to present the fruits of their year-long endeavors. Amara was the first to step forward, her voice steady as she addressed the gathered crowd. "I turn my land into the kingdom's most prosperous trade hub. Merchants from far and wide now bring their goods, and our coffers overflow with wealth." She handed the king a ledger brimming with numbers that spoke of her success. But then, her voice softened. "Yet I also saw the cost of unchecked growth. Small traders were silenced, and the spirit of the market faltered. I've since restructured the system to ensure fairness and opportunity for all, but I've learned that true prosperity cannot exist without compassion." The king nodded thoughtfully, his face revealing no emotion as he accepted her records. Seraphina stepped forward next, her hands calloused from a year of labor, but her spirit glowing with pride. "I transformed my land into a cooperative where people work together to protect and improve their lives. We rebuilt fields, schools, and homes, creating a strong, self-sustaining community." She hesitated, then added, "But I also learned that leadership isn't about doing everything myself. It's about empowering others to stand on their own." The strength of our people lies in their independence, not in their dependence on a single leader. The council murmured in approval, and the king inclined his head, signaling his acknowledgement. Finally, Liora approached, carrying a wooden box filled with items from her garden, a painting, a collection of poems, and a vial of fragrant oil. My land became a sanctuary for the weary, a place where people could find peace and inspiration. At first, I feared my work was insignificant compared to my sister's, but I came to see that healing and hope are as vital as wealth or strength. She gestured to the items in the box. These are the voices of those who found solace in my garden. Their stories reminded me that even small acts of kindness can ripple outward, creating change we may never fully see. The king leaned forward, examining the tokens with interest. "And what did you learn about yourself, daughter?" he asked. Liora paused, meeting her father's gaze. "I learned that nurturing others requires me to nurture myself. The garden didn't just heal those who visited. It healed me, too." The court was silent, the weight of their words settling over the room. The king stood, his imposing figure commanding attention. "You have each achieved much, but the true measure of your success lies not in what you built or created, but in how you've grown. Return to your chambers tonight. At dawn, I will announce my decision." That night, the sisters sat together in the palace gardens, a place they hadn't visited since their mother's passing. For the first time in years, they spoke openly, not as rivals but as sisters. They shared stories of their struggles, their fears, and the moments of triumph that had shaped them. "Whatever Father decides," Amara said, gazing at the moonlit sky, "I'm proud of us. We've all become better leaders and better people." Seraphina nodded, her voice resolute. "This year wasn't just a test for us. It was a gift. A chance to understand what it truly means to rule and to live." Liora added softly, "No matter who wears the crown, we'll always have this bond and the lessons we've learned." As dawn approached, the sisters made their way to the throne room, ready to face their father's judgment. But in their hearts, they already felt like they had won. The throne room was bathed in the golden light of dawn, the air filled with anticipation. The king sat upon his grand seat, his face stoic as the court gathered around him. The three sisters stood before him, each radiating a quiet confidence. Though they had spent the past year apart, they now stood together, united by the trials they had faced and the lessons they had learned. The king's voice cut through the silence, commanding yet measured. "Amara, Seraphina, Liora, you have each returned with tales of triumph and wisdom. I have listened to your accounts, studied your records, and reflected deeply on what it means to lead this kingdom. Today, I will make my decision." He turned first to Amara. "Amara, your ingenuity and vision turned a barren land into a thriving economic hub. You brought prosperity to your people and bolstered the kingdom's wealth. Yet, you also learned the value of balance and fairness, ensuring that no one is left behind in the pursuit of progress." Amara bowed her head, her heart steady. "Thank you, Father." The king then turned to Seraphina. "Seraphina, your strength and dedication forged a resilient community where once there was despair. You rebuilt homes, educated children, and inspired hope. You learned that true leadership is not about control, but about empowering others to lead themselves." Seraphina nodded, her gaze unwavering. "It was an honor to serve, Father." Finally, the king looked to Liora. "Liora, your compassion and creativity turned your land into a sanctuary of healing and inspiration. You reminded us all of the power of the arts, of solace, and of hope. You learned that even in small acts, great change can begin, and that a ruler's heart must also be cared for." Liora met her father's eyes, her voice steady. "I am grateful for the chance to grow, Father." The king rose, his imposing figure casting a long shadow across the room. "Each of you has proven yourselves worthy in your own way. Yet, the throne cannot be shared. A single ruler must guide this kingdom, but she must do so with the wisdom of all three of you." He stepped forward, his eyes scanning the crowd before resting on his daughters. The crown will go to the one who has demonstrated not only the ability to lead, but the humility to learn, the strength to empower, and the heart to inspire. That person is... The room held its breath as the king paused. Then, with deliberate grace, he took the crown from his head and placed it gently on Liora's. Liora, you have shown that leadership is not about ambition or dominance, but about nurturing the soul of a kingdom. Your work in your garden touched not just the land, but the hearts of those who visited it. In your humility, you found strength. In your quietness, you found power. And in your compassion, you found the essence of what it means to rule. Liora's eyes filled with tears, but she did not hesitate as she knelt before her father. I accept this responsibility, Father, and I will lead with the wisdom my sisters in this kingdom have given me. The court erupted in applause, and the king helped Liora to her feet. Amara and Seraphina stepped forward, embracing their younger sister. There was no bitterness in their hearts, only pride and love. You'll be an incredible queen, Liora, Amara said, her voice warm. And we'll always be here to support you, Seraphina added, a smile lighting her face. The king raised his hands, calling for silence. Today marks a new chapter in our kingdom's history. Liora will be crowned queen, but this is not the end of your journey, Amara and Seraphina. You will remain by her side, guiding this kingdom with your wisdom and strength. Together, the three of you will forge a legacy that will endure for generations. As the ceremony continued, Liora looked out at the gathered crowd, her heart swelling with gratitude and determination. She had not sought the crown, but she accepted it with the promise to honor the lessons she had learned and to lead with compassion and grace. And so, the kingdom entered a new era, one guided by the unity of three sisters and the wisdom of their shared journey. It was not the end of the story, but the beginning of a reign that would be remembered for its harmony, strength, and heart. The coronation ceremony was a spectacle of splendor. The grand hall of the castle had been transformed into a breathtaking vision of celebration. Golden banners adorned the walls, and the scent of fresh blossoms filled the air. The people of the kingdom, nobles, villagers, artisans, and warriors, had all gathered to witness the beginning of Queen Liora's reign. The crown, a masterpiece of intricate craftsmanship, was presented on a velvet cushion. As the royal steward stepped forward, the room hushed. Liora knelt before the king, who held the crown above her head. His voice carried the weight of generations as he spoke. With this crown, I bestow upon you the title of Queen of this kingdom. May you lead with wisdom, strength, and compassion. May your reign bring prosperity, unity, and peace. As the crown was placed on her head, the room erupted in cheers. The people chanted her name, their voices echoing through the grand hall and spilling out into the city beyond. The energy was electric, a shared hope for the future under their new queen. After the formalities, Liora stood on the castle balcony, overlooking the vast kingdom. Amara and Seraphina stood beside her, their presence a testament to the unity the sisters had cultivated. Liora raised her hand, and the crowd below fell silent. My people, she began, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. Today, I stand here not as an individual, but as a part of something greater, a family, a kingdom, a shared dream. This crown is not just mine, it belongs to all of us. Together, we will build a future where every voice is heard, every talent nurtured, and every heart valued. Her words resonated deeply, and the crowd erupted into applause once more. The festival that followed was a grand affair, filled with music, dancing, and feasting. It was a night of joy, hope, and renewal, a celebration of the kingdom's bright future. In the days that followed, Queen Liora began her reign with a series of reforms inspired by the lessons she and her sisters had learned. Amara's economic innovations were implemented across the kingdom, creating new opportunities for trade and growth. Seraphina's focus on rebuilding and education became a cornerstone of the kingdom's development, ensuring that no one was left behind. Liora's emphasis on the arts and compassion brought a newfound sense of unity and identity to the people. The sisters worked together tirelessly, their bond stronger than ever. They were not only leaders but also symbols of hope and inspiration for the kingdom. Their journey had transformed not only themselves, but also the very fabric of their land. As the years passed, the kingdom flourished. Villages grew into thriving towns, fields yielded bountiful harvests, and the arts reached new heights. The people lived with a sense of purpose and pride, knowing that their leaders cared deeply for them. Queen Liora became known as the Heart of the Kingdom, a title that reflected her ability to unite and inspire. Amara and Seraphina were equally revered as the Vision and the Shield, respectively. Together, they were celebrated as the Triad of Harmony, a legacy that would be remembered for generations. One evening, as the sisters sat together in the royal garden, they reflected on their journey. The garden had become a symbol of their shared growth, a place where their individual strengths had come together to create something beautiful. "We've come so far," Amara said, her voice filled with wonder. "And there's still so much more to do," Seraphina added, her eyes shining with determination. Liora smiled, her heart full. "As long as we're together, there's nothing we cannot achieve." The moonlight bathed the garden in a soft glow as the sisters sat in peaceful companionship. Their journey had not been without challenges, but it had forged them into the leaders their kingdom needed. Together, they would continue to guide their people, their story a testament to the power of unity, love, and shared purpose. And so, the tale of the three princesses came to its end. Yet their legacy was only beginning, written into the hearts of the people they served.